Hey guys, welcome to the new episode number 8 of our The Bootstrap Startup Show. Today we have a special guest, Jammes Giancotti, who is a founder of several startups, and we'll talk about one of them of Oddup company. So it's a startup rating system which provides analysis, ratings on startups, and also offer transparency insights, helping you guys to make more informed investment decisions. And as always, we'll be talking about about entrepreneurship journey of James. How did he validate the product? How did he acquire first customers? What is his team size? What are his best revenue channels? So if you'll have any questions, feel free to drop them in comments. I will ask James at the end of our podcast. And as always, you'll be able to listen to the podcast at our website, thebootstrappedmarketing.com, and on iTunes or Google Podcasts. As always, Jen, thanks a lot for joining me today.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Cool. I just gave a brief description to our listeners, but we always ask our guests to introduce themselves because you can provide much more insights and you know better you than us. So please drop a few words about yourself and about your product.
Sure, maybe I'll take that in two parts. One about me and two about the product. So I'm a former banker, former consultant, studied law when I was younger. And then, I was in the corporate life for many, many years. And my last job was actually at Goldman Sachs in the research department. And one of the things that I always wanted to do, I was always an entrepreneur, wanted to get into running my own company because someone said something very profound to me when I was younger. When I was in the corporate life and really trying to make it amazing, win every battle, move up the political channel. And someone said to me, they never read your resume when you die. And that sort of stuck with me for a long time. And so, and further to that was, make something amazing that people will remember you by. And that's with life, family, friends, you name it. But, I was in the corporate life for many years. And one of the things I always loved was startups. I was a startup investor. I've been an angel investor. I've already started startups in the e-commerce space and the media space and sold them. Of course, they were smaller scale to where I am right now. But now I've sort of, for nearly 7 years, have sort of left the corporate life and started a company. And so when we talk about the company, we talk about Oddup. Oddup was initially an idea where I was using my previous experience in Goldman, where we would write research reports for corporate companies like your Facebook, your Alibaba, and so forth. And that's quite a common place with most institutional clients. So, before they buy a stock, they'll want to have a look at the particular analysis about a company. But I searched high and low, especially in Asia, where we started the company. Was there anything on startups, particularly as an angel investor? So before Oddup was born, I was actually running a small fund. And one of the things I put together was research reports on companies that were looking to invest in. And a lot of the LPs said, this is fantastic, you should make this a business. And I said, no, there's no need. I've got other things to do. But then more and more people wanted these reports. And so we thought maybe there's something in there. And then Oddup was born in, the late 2014, 2015. And since then, we've grown to multiple offices around the world, multiple partnerships, fantastic revenue. And we've sort of grown at a very hard space to get there. But, when I think about these last 5-6 years of growing the company, there's been some certain fun challenges and challenging times along the way.
Cool. How many offices do you have so far?
I'm just trying to count them all in my head. There's 7.
7, great. And what is your annual or monthly recurring revenue size?
Globally, it's around 10 mil.
Wow. That's fun.
It's taken a few years to get there.
Okay, so let's discuss your journey.
It's taken a while to get there, and a lot of pain to get there.
Your journey then.
Sure. What would you like to know?
You bet. Actually, my first question I want to ask you is what motivated you to build this product? How did you identify the market gap so people would like to pay for it?
Well, initially, I just thought it was something I wanted to do, or create a research report, make myself feel good about my something. And I've learned in startups, if I love a product, doesn't mean that everyone else does. But then I sent these, and I sent this. I had a small LP list, and then I had a larger sort of angel investors I knew and what they thought about the product. And a lot of them came back with suggestions, more graphs, more data, more information. But the general overview was, we really love that you got information about companies that we can't get information on. And so more and more feedback that customers wanted the product, that's when this was built. And I think that the history of growing a business, you learn that your product needs to move with who your customers are. So initially, our customers were angel investors. We were sort of that analyst or the associate for a VC when they didn't have a VC, whereas we're more of a data company. And so when we started building the product, we were building it for one audience. But now looking at back, 6 years now down the track, it's a very different product. But the core of it's the same. It's just the way it gets delivered.
Yeah, as always, it happens with products. So you start with one idea, you think it would be enough for your customers, then you get a customer's feedback, you run client success processes, you collect the feedback, and finally you realize, and with years, you totally rebuild and create new product. So yeah, it happens. Like with all of our previous guests, all of them had the same experience, so all of them pivoted and transformed the product. So it was like starting from what they have and what they have right now, it's like we can say it's totally new product. So yeah, that's very common for all bootstrapped companies. I wanted to ask you, how did you validate the product idea? What were your first steps to validate that people will pay for it?
Let me take a step back to all those years ago. Well, initially we gave the product out for free because we wanted to see actually if anyone really cared. It's sort of like, if I think of Oddup, I think of it as my like a child. It's my child. And does anyone find her pretty? And so if I use that analogy, the child's growing up as over time, but it's more the case of, this is the product that I want. Do you think it's beautiful? And, would you pay to buy it? And the key thing from what we learned was, particularly in the early days, where there was more shock that we weren't charging. So what we learned very fast was that we were giving this product away, and there was no validation in the fact that this is great, you're giving it away. Why are you giving it away for? Are you selling something else? And this is one thing that we had to tweak the way we sold the product. And we had to think of ourselves we had to think of ourselves better than we were. So as a startup, you want to get your product out there. You want as many people to have it, and then ultimately sell it on. But we're in a research product when people are paying, 10, 15, 20,000 US dollars for one analyst, and we're giving it for free. People are like, are you selling something else? And this is just a sort of a simple report to give away. Do you own the stock and you're trying to sell it? And so these are sort of things that we learned, that the validation was, okay, well, what we needed was for people to spend money. So then, okay, let's get people to spend money. And they were. And that was the biggest shock. We thought, wow, people are going to spend $5,000 for our software for a year. Wow, that's fantastic. We're over the moon. And then things kept on compounding, because once you had, and this is probably the second part of validation, once you had someone senior in a good company who was buying your product, then other people go, well, why do they have that? And why are they buying this? I want to try it out as well. And so that helps, of course, with the sales cycle. So when I think of validation, I think of, don't sell yourself and your product short. And that's what we initially did to begin with, because we just thought this was just a hobby. And, people are actually prepared to pay for hobbies.
If we'll take a step back and again, just remember your validation process. What worked really well for you besides giving product for free?
Formats, delivery. So when I think about the way people wanted the report, it was giving them something that was easy to digest. So when we wanted to validate, most people do A/B testing. Most people do, Google Ads, trying to change website pages. They do a whole heap of validations. But we're taking a step back. We're giving them basically a PDF document. So the validation for us at the initial stage then was, do they like report A or B? Okay, they like B. Okay, so B now versus C. What and which one are they prepared to pay for? So it was sort of going back to a real basic juvenile way of, here's a Word document or PDF document, which document can sell more. And so we kept on reiterating based on feedback, and that's how we actually validated the need. So then when we found the funnel of, okay, this is what people are prepared to pay for in format and the way it gets delivered, then the question is, okay, how can we then scale? And so there's probably a second question versus validation versus scaling. But for us, it was more about, how do we do a lot of product testing in our actual product, and how do we deliver the product? Is it via email? Is it via website, and so forth?
Got it. Well, and let me ask you a question. What mistakes did you make at this step?
If I could go back in time and change as many things, maybe I wouldn't, because it's lessons learned. Spending money on dev when you shouldn't. One thing I've learned, and this is probably the best experience I've learned out of Oddup, is that when people build, and maybe we're a different case to others, but whoever's doing a data or a data product or someone who builds software for people, what you learn is that everyone wants to do things their own way. And so if I looked at when we first created our first version, I was creating a product that had all the bells and whistles, was amazing, alerts and so forth, when in fact what people actually wanted was simplicity. They wanted something, just give me the details, give me the facts. And so one of the biggest lessons we learned was building a Mercedes when they just wanted a Toyota is the best analogy I can give. No disrespect to Toyota or at all, but it's more that they wanted something that worked. They didn't want something with everything else. And so when we were validating the product and putting that PDF as a data form on a website, it was, how do we make it much more to our customers? And we didn't get that right. We didn't do much more research on that. So that's the first lesson I learned, was maybe you should have asked the customers what they really wanted, rather than what we think they wanted. And that's where a lot of UX UI has helped. But at the stage we probably wasted 6 months of our time and money building something that they really didn't want.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for this frank answer. And I was wondering, you have defined your target audience and also the challenges they had, but at that moment, did they use any other software, and you somehow persuaded or convinced them to try your product, or you just created a new demand?
Okay, so I think this was at the time when we were, I suppose, in our early year, maybe year and a half, we had 3 major competitors. One was CB Insights, the other one was Mattermark, PitchBook, I guess, and PitchBook, probably the main 3. And most of our customers that we're dealing with were US. And so they had a lot of other comparisons. The only thing, as a technology product, they were better. At that time, they were superior to ours. We didn't have the money, we didn't have the funding, we didn't have the technology team. We had a relatively juvenile product, but we had something that they didn't have. And so what we had to do was sell to our strengths. We had Asia data, whereas all those 3 companies were in the US. They had no visibility what was going on in India, in China, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. And so when we sold, we said, well, we're a companion, we're a support of you may have CB Insights, that's fine. For US, we're not a US product, we're an Asia product. And so if you want access into Asia, that's it. So we had to learn that rather than competing, we were complementing products. And that's been the strategy since, where that these people, and what we also learned is people actually have 3 or 4 of the products. They buy 1, 2, 3, and they buy us for all different reasons. And so that was another thing that we learned, which we thought, oh no, they have to buy our product and that's it. In fact, actually, they bought all 4. We were just, it was actually us all working together to get a sale. Things have changed, of course, but that was what we learned very hard. But we sell what we know that we win at. Don't sell on we're better than this, they're better than us. That never works, because they're not going to look at someone who's been around for 18 months